Today, I want to show you a project that I love to do to choose travel outfits, to put outfits together for the evening. It's a great way to look at your wardrobe in a completely unique way as a watercolor lover. And I actually have a Skillshare class about this called Fashion Illustration Fashion Sets. And these are some of the projects from that class. So you can see how this project works and why it's so much fun. You can actually see all the accessories at a glance. You can play with different colors. You can use your own wardrobe. These are actually from editorials that I found out and about and combined a few of these on my own as well. This is a fall look. So you can see how versatile this project is. And today I want to show you how to do that. This is a specific group of garments and accessories to travel. So something I might wear in an airport or to drive to the beach or something like that. So I'm going to be using my Viviva spring set to paint this. And I'm going to be using this basic set of colors. This is a color palette. This is my brand color palette. So it's a color palette I use all the time and I love to use. And I found some really luscious colors here inside the spring set that are going to complement that color palette really nicely. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm also using 140-pound watercolor paper. This is a 9x12 sketchbook by Canson. And this also translates to 300 gram if you're using metrics. But 9x12 is a nice size that I can lay everything out like a flat lay and see everything. But you can work with any size you like. I'm also using 2 round brushes, a medium round brush and a small round brush. And I'll be outlining a few things with my micron pen. It's a size 08, which is nice and thick. And the cool thing about microns is it's made with archival ink that doesn't run when it's wet. So it's perfect for watercolor painting. I've gone ahead and sketched these out ahead of time. And one way you can do that, if you're not great at sketching, is to lay your outfits down on a flat surface, or you can even trace, but just capture basic outlines and silhouettes. It doesn't have to be fancy and it doesn't have to be perfect. This is for your use and for fun. So please relax and have fun with this project. I'm using 2 jars of water. This is so that I don't have to get up and change my water often. It just keeps me painting longer, which is super convenient for me. So the first color I'm going to dip into here is the cinnamon. So it's a nice creamy color. It has white in it, so it's not as transparent as some of the others, but I love this color already. I've only used it once and it's already a favorite for me. It's got a nice peachy undertone, so a little orange, a little white, and possibly a little brown in there. I'm not exactly sure, but that's pretty close probably to how they mix this color. It just has a lovely fleshy kind of a color. The darker you make it, the more peachy it looks, or orange. You can see that at the top now. I've gotten it pretty dark. I'm going to go ahead and paint this all the way through because the brim of this hat is going to be a darker color, so I'm not worried about how this peach is going to affect it. And just staying as close to my outlines as I can, but not being too precious with it. Like I said, this is a fun, casual project that you can do anytime for any purpose. It doesn't even have to be themed around travel. It can be themed around any kind of outfits that you want to paint or to see in your sketchbook. While I have this color going, I'm going to go ahead and also paint the handbag and a few other things. This is going to be a nice neutral color that I can use as a theme and as a nice backdrop to quite a few of these projects. So with watercolor, you always start with light first and then you go dark on top and build up the color. That's really nice. I'm going to let that dry. I'm not getting these too wet because I want them to dry as quickly as possible, but I do live in the desert, so they dry pretty fast regardless. I'm going to go ahead and paint this through as well. And following the lines, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, but as close as you can get, if you really work to use the tip of your brush to follow along with these lines, it's just such great practice. Brushwork is so important to being a proficient watercolor painter, and so practicing the art of control is so fun, and it will make you such a better painter. So just a tip there for you, brush control and just practicing. Don't worry that you're not perfect at first. That's what practice is for. And you're not supposed to be perfect at first at anything. So don't worry about it. Just dive in and have fun with it. I think as art students, many of my art students are so worried that their art isn't good enough to show. But you're a student for a reason, because you do need that direction and you need that practice. And we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves that we can't move ahead because we're so worried about what our art looks like. But that's what we do. So I get it. I've done it too. And I know imposter syndrome is real and it's not fun, but it's something we have to cope with. And I'm just here to tell you that the more you realize that you're better than you think, the more fun you're going to have and the more you're going to relax with this and use it even as a form of meditation, which is amazing. Let's see. I think I want to do the shell also, and then I will move on to another color. This is a nice color for a shell too, a nice peachy color. And that's great. I'm just going to let all of that dry. Some of it's dry already, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to my blue, and I'm going to use this cobalt blue. I love a blue with a little gray in it. This Marina blue has more green in it, and it's a little closer to a true blue, but I have just fallen in love with blue with a little more black or gray in it. And I just think it's a little softer, and I don't know, it's just my thing, I guess. You'll notice there are some shapes and some colors that you'll just keep gravitating towards, and that just becomes a part of your style. Everyone has a style, whether we know it or not. Style is just what you tend to do and what you tend to like. That's really all it is. And being proud of that and being okay with that is the hardest part of developing style and allowing it to be what it is. I think by default, especially artists, we think that we're just never good enough. And I think I'm just really hoping that changes. And I always work with my students to let loose and relax and go easier on themselves, because it's supposed to be fun that at the end of the day. I'm going to put some scallops down here, like the pants are rippling. This is kind of meant to be more of a palazzo style pant, so very loose fitting and comfy for the summer. This is going to be a light fabric, just very easy and comfortable to wear. And that's way darker than I really intended. So here's a tip for you. If you make something too dark and you still have space to paint, use the paint and keep on spreading it around your project, because this will whiten in this section. And I still have plenty of paint to keep going. My brush dries really fast because, like I said, I am in the desert and it's so dry that I have to keep just wetting the tip so I can keep the paint moving. And I still have quite a bit on that side, but I'll just keep evening it out. I can always take a paper towel and dab it. That's called lifting. It's a technique used in watercolor often, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just work with what I have and see what happens. Another big part of becoming a watercolor painter is accepting how things turn out sometimes. I mean, even experienced watercolor painters do things they weren't expecting to do all the time. And I don't know if beginner watercolor painters really realize that, and they think that they're so wrong in what they're doing, and it's really quite normal. Again, go easy on yourself and enjoy your process. Just adding some scallops down here too, to show some of these folds. And I'm going to leave this hard edge. It'll be a nice outline on this one side, but I've added enough water in the middle that it's lightened quite a bit and matches this side way more. And I don't mind that that's so textured. You know, one of the things I love about watercolor so much is the texture. So I don't work too hard to make things too even all the time. It's just part of the joy of the paint. Now I want to paint this luggage, and I'm going to do a much lighter version of this blue. So I'm going to take a little bit and I'm going to spread it all around because I want it to turn out a different shade of this. I don't want too many things to look the same. Give it a little variation, even if it's just in tone. That's great. I'm going to let that dry, and I'll add some detail to this with a darker color. So all of this is dry up here, and I'm not ready to do my scarf yet. So I am going to go ahead and switch to my detail brush, or my smaller round brush. I do have a detail brush, but this one, being a round brush, has that lovely point that is so wonderful for detail that, you know, my detail brush can't compete with that. At some point I can try different types of detail brushes, but I am quite taken with this one, so I'm going to stick to it for the time being until I find something better. So the same goes for materials and tools. It's all about experimentation. A tool that works well for one artist may not work well for another. It's like anything else. So it's really important to try new things and stick with the ones that work. Kind of a nice mixture of both to keep your practice fresh and really excel at using the tool that you love. This is interesting. I think that's blue is a really fun color. And I think that's enough. Now I'm going to move on to this called Indian Red. Oh my gosh, is it pretty? So this is a color that's very much like my main brand color, which is like a terracotta color, and I'm fallen in love with this color already. It is just gorgeous and rich. It's basically brown and red, pretty much what terracotta is, but this version is stunning, and I'm so excited about it. I'm going to go ahead and do the brim of this hat with this color, and you can see how pretty it is and how lovely it is against that peachy tone. Pretty sweet. Now, another thing I want to point out is that when you do a fashion project like this, you don't have to worry about each item being at the right scale. Obviously, these sunglasses are way bigger than they would go with this outfit. The hat might almost work, but it's probably a little big too. And everything is not in proportion, but that's totally okay. It actually makes this project way more fun and interesting. If you ever look at an editorial spread in a fashion magazine, you'll notice that the items are all different sizes. They're not in proportion either. I am going to go ahead and do these handles. Again, just practicing my brushwork by trying to stay in these lines. I'm going to let this front handle dry before I even attempt to do the back one, or they're just going to run together. Not as clean as I would have liked, but that's okay. Again, it's all part of the process. I'm going to move down, and just another note, it's best if you start at the top and work your way down so you're not putting your arm in your paint as you're painting. So I've learned to kind of move this way, and I can see I have some blue that is running. I think this blue is just dry enough. I can clean that up. So here's a great example of lifting color where you don't want it. Take a nice clean towel or paper towel and just dab once you wet that spot and let that dry, and then you can go back and clean up whatever you need to clean up. This is pretty easy and simple if you catch it right away. If it's dry, it can still be done. It's just harder because some of that paint has soaked into the paper. Okay, now I am going to keep going with this Indian red and do some more detail. For example, on these shoes, I'm going to go ahead and go over my pencil marks with this color. This is a very thin line, so this is a test of my accuracy or my brush control. Again, it's not about accuracy, but it's great practice. I have to make sure that my brush stays just wet enough that the paint can move, but not dry enough that it's going to be saturated. I don't want a lot of water in this line or you won't see the color very well. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go back over some of these peach areas that are dry now with some texture. So let's see. I'm going to wet that just a bit because I don't want this super dark. I just want it a little darker than this peach. And I'm going to go ahead and go over some of this detail to show some shadow and some of these shapes a little bit better. This is a little knot in the t-shirt. And I can show some little shadow as the top moves through the wrinkles and folds. I think it works enough to tell the story. These will all dry a little lighter than I've painted them too. That's another thing about watercolor. Now with this one, I'm just going to, because this is technically a rattan or straw bag, however you want to call it, I'm going to put a little detail on here. And I'm going to make these pretty watery because I just want it just a little bit darker than the actual bag color. I just want a little hint of texture. And I'm going to put little rows of dots and squiggles here that show that this is not just a flat fabric. This is a textured material. And I think that visually it will put the whole story together. Did you know that vision is in the brain? I learned that a while back, but not everyone is aware. Your eyes are just a lens, and vision actually happens in the brain. So what happens is the brain wants to make things look consistent, and it wants to blend, and it will do a lot of the work for you. If you just put the textures down, your brain will fill in the blanks on a lot of this stuff. So you don't have to work so hard to make it photo perfect. It's really interesting how that works. Makes a watercolor painter's job a lot easier and a lot more fun too. Fantastic. I'm going to leave it at that and let that dry. So I've got the hat, the glasses. I should go back to the glasses and just put a little more detail in here where I did some lift. And with this darker color, just add a little shadow in here as well. Makes the lens look like it's reflecting. I'm going to paint some blue stripes through this scarf. This scarf is going to tie this outfit together, so it's going to represent all the colors, which in this case is sienna and blue. I'm going to use some stripes to just pull it together. I'm going to leave the background white and just go right down the side, just like that. The top I can do a little funky because it's kind of wound together and twisting. Now I'm going to come down here and use a little bit darker blue to make some ridges on the side of the luggage. Making these a little wider than I expected, but I kind of like it. It's a nice show of texture. And you've seen luggage like this before, I'm sure. It's everywhere. I'm just scanning my project to see what else I can add. I kind of like how I've painted lines already in this pant. And I'm going to come back with my fine liner and do some more detail with it. I'm going to bring in my Viviva metallic set because I think it will add some nice detail to this necklace. I want to make my brush nice and saturated, nice and wet and full. You can see the gold on the tip. And I'm just going to follow these lines. Again, it'll be a very thin line. So I'll just be careful and practice my brushwork. Carefully winding around and back up like that. Again, not a perfect circle, but I kind of love it. It's definitely telling the story that I want. I want to add some Indian red stripes to this scarf, and I'm going to just kind of place them in between the blue, make them look a little random up here, and then a little bit more in line down here where you can see the stripes better. Stripes don't have to be perfectly spaced. I'm trying to make it thin at the top where it would bunch up and then thicker at the bottom where it would spread out. That's another technique you can use to show the movement of fabric. I'm going to go ahead and start outlining my pieces. You don't have to outline your pieces, but I find it's a nice compliment when you have light colors like I do that maybe don't quite pop off the page. That just adds a nice accent. I don't know if I'm going to do the glasses. I might do the sunglasses. We'll see. Let me just keep it going. I don't have to outline everything. Maybe a little extra here and there. You use your judgment and see what you want to show for outlines. I'm just going to add more folds. I think I like that better. And the pants need a little more detail. That is nice. I'm not even going to touch that. But I might go to the bottom and show the bottom frilling out, and I might just add some folds here to show how wide they really are. And do the same here. I'm going to try and make these correspond with the scalloping. I'm happy with that. Let me go ahead and outline the bag. I kind of wish that came down a little more, but maybe I can do some outlining and fill in some of these blanks. And let's see, going down the row here, I'm going to go ahead and do the sandals. I'm keeping the pressure light because I don't want the black to take over the beautiful color. I just want it to be a nice accent to bring everything to life. Do a little detail on this shell so it's really popping more. This micron drives really fast, so I don't have to worry about it being wet or putting my arm in it. So that's good. I'm just going to fill this in to show it's a handle. Don't have to get too crazy with it. And do some wheels down here. Just enough saturation on the black to show the shape and to show that it's a solid shape. Ooh, I need to concentrate on the shape of this luggage. I'm wavering on my lines here a little bit. Great. I might just make this wheels just a little bit larger. And you can stand back and look at your project and see if you want to add anything. I don't think this should be left unoutlined. I'm going to add some folds in here as well to show that the scarf is rolling and folding and so forth. I don't have to be so precious with this one because it's a piece that is already imperfect. So I could be a little wild with this one. Fantastic. I might make this a little darker up here. And I think I've decided to outline these sunglasses just to give them a little bit more definition. The last thing I'm going to do is to color this lettering. I actually never did too much lettering before. I don't have a huge amount of patience for perfection, but now there is a style that is not so perfect that is really sought after, and so now I'm having fun just doing some crazy artistic lettering and letting it be. And now I can actually say that for the first time I enjoy it, because I think the whole point was I don't like my lettering too fussy. I just want to throw it on like I do my paint and not worry about how perfect the calligraphy is or the placing is. It's just my own artwork. And because I don't have to worry about the fine liner running, I can take a little blue and just put some accent through it. And it'll stay right where it is. I hope that you will paint your outfits. Thank you for watching.